But it gets to a point where she breaks down.
The topic of oysters?
No, the topic of, like, you know, just her conversations that have been happening about her body falsely accusing her of different things.
She
Having an odor.
shot.
Yeah, in episodes leading up to this, I will say that there's been other things that have been happening where K. Michelle thinks that Porsha is like taking shots but like hiding her hand type of thing. So she says she doesn't feel safe. Let's take a listen to K. Michelle on not feeling safe.
It appears the bad blood between Porsha Williams and K. Michelle never truly dissipated. Just when the public assumed their high-profile apology had permanently buried the hatchet, industry insiders reveal that the underlying hostility was secretly intensifying behind closed doors. Now, the explosive new details emerging from this feud are forcing everyone to ask some incredibly serious questions about what really went down.
Oh,
God.
okay.
And y'all can sit here and say you care about people when y'all be sitting there plotting and trying to do stuff to people. If I know that a mother is sitting there plotting my hurt, I'm not gonna smile in your face. I know exactly the whole plot.
Last night after we left dinner, someone called me and said that there was a plot and a plan this whole time.
This is precisely where the narrative takes a highly convoluted turn. According to emerging reports, Porsha Williams originally orchestrated the perception that her grievances with K. Michelle were entirely a thing of the past. Words of regret were spoken, direct dialogues took place, and to the outside world, the conflict appeared effectively neutralized. However, deep sources insist that harmony was purely cosmetic. Almost immediately following that public truce, fractured undercurrents began bubbling up through coded remarks, muted pushback, and an undeniable transformation in their mutual demeanor.
K. Michelle tweeted just about somebody being a coward, and you know, Porsha responded back. So K. Michelle said, "Don't sit in my face and play like you."
And then it escalated, because instead of keeping things private, the situation slowly started playing out in real time.
Don't know what I'm talking about. You want a reaction so you can have it. Say it to my face or be a quiet coward. Porsha says, "Who is a coward? I would define a coward as a person tweeting from the same house. Tutor is down for me. Next time, let's do our job and bring it to the front door."
By that stage, it became undeniable that this had escalated far beyond a simple miscommunication. Well-placed sources hint that what the public mistook for definitive closure was merely the prologue to a much more profound conflict. Behind closed doors, secret strategies were already being discussed, critical doubts were being voiced, and battle lines were being silently established. Once a feud spills over from confidential whispers into the public eye, there is almost never a turning back. What kicked off as a basic truce is rapidly transforming into an absolute crisis. What truly has the internet captivated, however, is the shocking depth of how far back this animosity actually runs. Reliable informants indicate that this explosive fallout did not materialize out of thin air. There were long-standing, hidden resentments already at play, moments where their stories contradicted each other, and minor interactions that seemed trivial then, but now feel incredibly calculated in retrospect. Furthermore, insiders claim the peace offering itself completely missed its mark. While Porsha Williams seemingly extended her olive branch with transparent intentions, those on the receiving end were completely unwilling to accept it.
I think that's another situation where someone has decided that this is the route they need to take. I don't think this is the route that K. Michelle needs to take or has to take. I think it's the wrong road. But at the end of the day, if you have been watching...
That critical flashpoint, according to data, underscores a far more systematic issue because industry insiders assert that definitive biases were already solidifying backstage. Key players were actively choosing camps, strategic coalitions were quietly forming, and a specific storyline was rapidly cementing. Simultaneously, K. Michelle was reportedly navigating her own intense exasperation, not merely regarding the specific statements uttered, but focusing heavily on the delivery style and how that optics play would translate to rolling cameras. This is precisely where the drama grows intensely complex, because the feud transcends a single remark or basic friction. It transforms entirely into a battle over motives. It becomes an outright war of optics. More critically, it fundamentally dismantles absolute trust. Deep sources imply that following that specific shift, every single exchange carried immense psychological weight. Every offhand joke, every physical reaction, and every casual conversation was suddenly cross-examined under a completely different microscopic lens. Once that psychological transition occurs, even the most harmless gesture feels weaponized. Entirely neutral scenarios are suddenly interpreted as direct personal attacks. This insidious pattern is exactly how high-profile feuds spiral out of control. It rarely requires one massive explosion, but rather a slow burn of microscopic friction that steadily accumulates until an ostensibly settled issue violently erupts all over again. By the time the parties comprehend the true damage, the public narrative has already outpaced them completely. Then the entire facade began to crumble as the situation took an undeniably sinister turn. Prior to this moment, the friction could easily be dismissed as standard ego clashes, bad editing, or typical reality television theatrics running its course. However, close sources reveal that the narrative completely shifted because this marks the exact threshold where serious accusations emerged. Allegedly, Michelle began dropping highly calculated breadcrumbs regarding a much more severe situation unfolding in the background. She didn't state it outright or deliver it transparently, but it was just enough for sharp observers to begin linking the pieces together. Insiders firmly maintain that these cryptic warnings were entirely premeditated, designed to pivot the entire conversation away from a standard rivalry and drag it into deeply sensitive personal territory.
To talk about a rumor that a disgruntled ex said 8 years ago. I already know who you contacted, what blogs you called. To go read that and want to spread that.
That definitive crossroad, according to investigative reports, unlocked the floodgates to an entirely different tier of controversy, forcing long-buried rumors right back under the unforgiving media spotlight. Ancient scandals that had been carefully hidden or dismissed were suddenly being weaponized in current discussions. Once that threshold is breached, the fallout cannot be easily contained. It spreads like wildfire. Insiders confirm that is precisely how the dominoes fell next. Parallel to those cryptic warnings, confidential assertions began circulating through the grapevine. These whispers implied that the true crisis ran far deeper than a mere televised shouting match. Allegedly, there were heavy indications of an illicit hookup, a clandestine rendezvous, and even highly damaging speculation surrounding a secret recording. To be absolutely clear, none of these toxic claims have been verified by official parties. Yet, the mere reality that these explosive discussions are taking place is what completely shifted the paradigm. The entire conversation pivoted away from scripted on-camera friction and focused entirely on what secretly transpired behind closed doors. That is the exact moment the timeline began escalating at breakneck speed. According to deep sources, this transcended typical entertainment drama. It was viewed as the ultimate personal betrayal. The shocking implication that an individual could aggressively project a pristine public image while allegedly engaging in contradictory behavior in the dark is what pushed this entire feud over the precipice. That is precisely when the retaliation truly manifested. It initiated with highly calculated passive-aggressive remarks and coded clapbacks, before rapidly evolving into loud, direct, and completely undeniable confrontations.
So when I watched Michelle her punishment was too hard for what she called the crime, I said, okay. I picked up my phone and I texted. Because that's how I am. Ask Candy. Ask anybody. Ask Sheree. If you do, I'm going to text right away as I'm watching the show. And I said, hey, I just want you to know I'm...
That critical standpoint, according to investigative reports, uncovers a far more deep-rooted crisis because this is no longer a mere battle to protect a public image. This has transformed into a desperate scramble to maintain absolute damage control over a volatile situation that is rapidly spiraling away. Simultaneously, Michelle appears to be dug into her trenches completely unmoved, refusing to retract a single statement or dilute her aggressive posture, a defiant stance that only injects massive amounts of tension into the unfolding disaster.
But with this, because I think sometimes it's like we don't know what's real and what's not. So producers are like throwing in this storyline, throwing in this joke. If that did happen, and because all of that was in the news, I don't even know if I would even touch that.
And that is precisely where the entire conflict turns deeply emotional, because the focus transcends the mere sequence of events and centers entirely on the psychological toll. Informants state that sheer exasperation has rapidly evolved into a much more oppressive burden. Immense pressure is manifesting as total exhaustion, and calculated restraint is slowly devolving into pure raw reaction. When an individual is blindsided by multiple chaotic narratives simultaneously, the deeply personal, the highly public, and the intensely emotional, dissecting them becomes an impossible task. That is exactly when the audience begins analyzing every single gesture with a hypercritical eye. A passing comment is perceived as incredibly sharp. A standard response reads as completely defensive. A minor moment is blown up to feel vastly more significant than reality. This exact shift is what sharp viewers are actively detecting across social media. Not merely the surface-level theatricality, but the visible breakdown from a poised exterior to a highly reactive, completely overwhelmed state. This is where the entire online discourse fundamentally pivots, because fans are no longer just investigating the root causes of the feud. They are openly questioning how deeply this psychological warfare is fracturing her peace of mind, and whether she is maintaining a grip on the narrative or if it has completely shattered past the point of no return. Consequently, the collateral damage is becoming absolutely impossible to downplay. At this advanced stage, the crisis is no longer confined to the initial statements or the unverified rumors that surfaced. It centers entirely on public perception, and the terrifying speed at which that collective sentiment is turning against Porsha Williams. According to industry insiders, the fallout is beginning to jeopardize far more than just her immediate schedule. It is actively corroding her brand equity, her industry reputation, and how every subsequent career move will be hyperanalyzed from this day forward. Once a toxic narrative of this magnitude gains momentum, it never simply evaporates. It lingers indefinitely, permanently altering the trajectory of everything in its wake.
I felt bad watching K. Michelle break down the way she did on this episode, though.
That makes more sense now.
That final breaking point, industry insiders note, exposes a much more profound systemic crisis. When an individual realizes they are completely misunderstood, or worse, denied even the basic benefit of the doubt, it forces an immediate defensive wall. In high-stakes public feuds, that emotional distance rapidly hardens into permanent division. The audience is no longer passively observing the timeline develop. They are actively drawing battle lines. Dedicated loyalists, harsh detractors, and casual onlookers are all cementing their verdicts in real time. This is precisely where the most devastating brand destruction occurs, not necessarily fueled by verified evidence, but driven entirely by how those unverified claims are interpreted by the masses. Throughout this entire chaotic storm, absolute clarity remains completely non-existent. Until definitive receipts are produced, every blind assumption and every frantic public reaction only drives the wedge deeper into the controversy. Right now, it is undeniably clear that this explosive situation is nowhere near a resolution. If anything, it is carving out a permanent scar on their public legacies that will prove incredibly difficult to erase. The reality is, the public is still operating without the definitive blueprint of this scandal. If even a fraction of these viral allegations carries genuine weight, then this feud is far from its conclusion. It is only pulling everyone further into the abyss.